Welcome to the Legacy 7 podcast. I'm your host, James M. Holloway. And around Atlanta, they sound the most interesting man in the city. 7 names, 1 legacy. Let's get it. Welcome to the Legacy 7 podcast, where our interviews won't always be perfect, but our conversations will always be real. I am your host, James M. Holloway, author, leader, and maybe 3 to 5 people in Decatur say I'm the most interesting man in Atlanta. Today, we have a very, very, very special guest with us. He's been a teacher. He's been a coach. He's been a motivator. He is just an awesome person. And we're going to let him share his story with you through a wonderful and robust leadership conversation coming up. So let me introduce to you all with a well-deserved round of applause, Dr. Tyler Arnold.
Hello, how you guys doing? Okay.
All right, there we go. So, man, we've talked, and you like to be called Ty, right? We're going to start this off right, Ty. So one of the things that you say, man, is bring the juice.
So bring the energy. You only have so many days, lifetime to be able to create that legacy. So do everything you can to leave a legacy that is worth remembering. And that's that energy, that juice every day.
Leaving a legacy worth remembering. How does that work for educators?
I think and I say this phrase too, leave people in places better than you found them. It was my first year at my new school, and my ultimate goal was to get to know everybody and do everything I could to build relationships. So for me, whenever there was a passing bell, I was never in my office. If I was in the middle of an email, I just stopped it. I walked out and I got to see the kids. The reason being, and adults, it's good just to have those interactions. I don't have the same interactions as the teachers do day in and day out. So those 3 to 5 minutes in passing, being able to check in with kids, see how they're doing, give them high fives, fist bumps, just so we could set the tone before they go into class was really important to me.
Now, you go get yourself in some trouble talking about setting the tone. I find that that's hard for leaders to do. Setting the tone in the classroom, what does that look like? Paint us a picture.
From my perspective, I'm in a whole different realm. So I'm making rounds through passing, checking in, seeing how kids' attitudes are, trying to hype them up before they get in the classroom for the simple fact that you don't know how their day has started, but the ultimate goal is to give them that juice when they go in the classroom so they're active participants, engaged, giving their best effort.
Okay. So juice does mean energy. You said that. And
yeah.
Look, why do you think kids deserve our best energy? Why do they deserve that juice?
I've said this before, and I'll say it every time. Parents and communities entrust us with their most precious commodity, which is their young people. If we're not willing to give that effort each and every day, then why are you even in the profession? You gotta bring it every day. Kids deserve it. You don't know what their home lives are like. You don't know what's going on in their life. You could be that shining moment for them. So you need to give them that all.
Speaking of home lives, you and I talked about this. You started in an alternative setting. Mm-hmm. So I can imagine the challenges demographically that those present. Talk to us about how you connected with those scholars.
I was young, so they were all seniors when I got them. So I was probably, 23 when I started with them. So not too far off from them. My ultimate goal always is to build relationships. So I got to know who they were. It was less about what you did before, the tabula rasa model. You are a blank slate when I get to see you and meet you. So let me see what you're about. I got to know kids on so many different levels and create those connections through working out, anime, anything that I could find that I could get those interests and start to develop those relationships. And honestly, that alternative group I had for a couple of years were some of the favorite kids I've ever had. I've been to their weddings. I've seen them grow up. I've seen them have kids. I've seen them, go to the military, college, all these successes. And it just started with a simple relationship.
Man, that is compelling. It does start with a simple relationship.
I was able to just pour into them. The cool thing about the class I had, which was career-based intervention, was it was all about creating a dynamic relationship with them and giving them experiences that they might not have had the opportunity to have. So we developed so many different things. We had real life scenarios. So I had them all go through different challenges that they would see in their future, from, car repairs to how to rent an apartment. We had military tours for kids who were interested in that. We went to 2 major universities. We got to see Columbus State, which is the local community college, but we also saw Ohio State. I wanted to give them a grand spectrum of what they could experience and what life had for them. Because again, dealing with seniors, to be honest, were checked out and tired of the system that they were in. It was all about letting them see past what was in front of them and giving them the ideology of, hey, this could be your future.
Now, man, you just said Columbus, so I'm assuming that you mean Ohio.
614 Columbus.
All right. Now, you have a very interesting story about how you transitioned to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And, I want to talk about that because that's important in leadership. People rarely talk about that thing and what that feels like. So I'm trying to build a fantastic emotional arc for you to talk about the love of your life and how that has contributed to you being an impactful leader.
For sure. So really my journey is one that was built on the relationship that I had with, at the time, my girlfriend. So I had come back from graduate school. A buddy of mine and his sister were having a Halloween party. Met her, hit it off right away. Ultimately, we lived in different states. So she lived up towards the Cleveland area, and I'm in Richmond, Indiana, which is like the southern tip-ish area, kind of like a 45 to an hour-minute drive from Cincinnati straight across. Long story short, I'm in graduate school, and I'm like, how am I going to keep this relationship going? So I'm driving. I'm also a wrestling coach at this time. So when we don't have tournaments, I'm sneaking up there on the weekends to see her, making sure all my work gets done. I'm staying on top of all my duties as a student teacher. So then we get to the end of the year. She comes to my graduation, meets my family. I know things are going great. I'll be honest with you. I was going to marry her. All over Indiana. And one of them is in LaPorte, which is like way up north. It's about, if you take the turnpike, you're like an hour away from Chicago. So I'm driving back. I'm excited because I have a job offer. Coming out of college, you want that opportunity. I call her and say, listen, I had this offer. What do you think? We'll make it work anyway. So I'm driving to Indiana. So I'm sitting there heavy on my heart thinking, like, is this going to be the best decision for my life? Like, am I willing to take a job over potential love? I want to be able to nurture what's most important to me at this time. So I make the decision that I'm going to forgo the jobs in Indiana and move back to Columbus with her. With that being said, it was so late in the hiring season, I ended up not finding a job at that time. So I was a sub, then I became a paraprofessional. Now the paraprofessional job helped me understand things and be put with really good veteran teachers who took me under their wing, allowed me to lead some classes at times when they were out of the building, when they had a sub. So I'm forever grateful for those people because they trusted me. And ultimately, it led to the best decision of my life. I'm married to my wife now. We have 3 kids together. And so for me, I made the right choice. But it also gave me perspective because I didn't just jump right into the classroom. And there's nothing wrong with that. I started on a level that was completely different as a paraprofessional. I, learned multiple skills and things through that. I also appreciate the work that they do. We both know that they're underpaid, overworked. And so my ultimate goal whenever I work with paraprofessionals, is to make sure, A, they feel supported, but also not overworked, trying to get them the best supports as possible. So they feel like if they are going to make that next step, I want to become a teacher. How can I support you?
Now, you said something that I think everybody should hear twice, and that's, we'll make it work anyway, because we do have to do that as leaders. We have to do that for our families. We have to do that in our buildings. We are responsible for making it work anyway.
Uh-oh, I'm freezing.
Oh, that's fine. We told the audience that the interviews won't be perfect, but the conversations will be real. And that's a real moment. We have some technology challenges and we're buffering.
Always.
That happens.
Hey,
nothing's
ever
happens.
Perfect, right?
That's right. It's not, man. So again, making it happen, right? Making it work anyway. You have to do that with all relationships that are of quality, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about the seat of leadership, it's lonely. And talk to the audience about that. We got a lot of young leaders, a lot of people who want to be leaders, who want to sit in the hot seat, but they don't understand the loneliness that can come with it.
The nice thing about the connections that I'm currently making through a lot of the social media that I do is with young people who are thinking about becoming leaders. And ultimately, when you talk about a seat, it is a lonely seat because only a few people understand that ultimate role as a building leader. Assistant principals, you try and give them as much knowledge as possible, but you can never give them every scenario that you're going to go through and the thought process it takes. You can try and share that knowledge. What makes the job the loneliest is the fact that there's pressure from every angle. You want to please the kids, you want to please the parents, you want to please the teachers, you want to please the community, your board, your superintendent. So all these things are working on you and you're doing your best. And at times, just like teachers, you go through the peaks and the troughs and you're just like, oh, what am I doing? And, it doesn't help when if scores go, you have a bad score on a report card or, the community's talking about something that you did. And that can be really hard because people can say, oh, it'll be okay. But it's your name associated with whatever's going on because your name's on the building, your name's on the report card, your name's associated with it. With that being said, I think that early on, I didn't lean into those people who were around me. And so that's why if I could tell anything or take away anything from this podcast is that find those people that you resonate with and lean into them. The worst case scenario, you're going to find something that you don't want to do and you're going to do the opposite. But you might find a connection that truly, impacts you and you use to help yourself gain years of experience before you're even in the role.
You sound like you're telling people to do the work before they get to the seat.
100%.
And that's so critical. Young leaders understand that they have to do the work. Now, we talked about something else that I want you to kind of expound upon to our audience is you are passionate about what the new generation of leaders need. So tell everybody what you think they need. We have to address the elephant in the room.
Oh, for sure.
We have been under time capsule leadership for a long time, right? And so as we transition to 2026 and beyond, what do you think the new generation of leaders need? How would you develop them?
Number one, it always starts with relationships, and I'm always going to come back to that. You are nothing without the people in your building. You have to build those bonds and build those bridges. The reason being, I say that some of your best ideas come from your people in the front line. You have to be open and ready to talk, get feedback. And what I tell people is sometimes the feedback is not always going to feel good. You have to take your personal emotion out of it because if they're willing to give you the feedback, you need to look at it from a realistic perspective. Will this move our building forward? So the whole ego thing has to be out the window. And I'll be the first one to tell you when again, going back to my own ego as a young leader, not that I knew it all, but I was like, I got this. I see other people doing it. I'm like, I can do that. You got to throw that out the window. You've got to be open to ideas. That direction isn't always what your building needs at the time, but it's good to just store that away for future use. I have a little journal I keep up all the ideas I've got from other leaders, and I go back and flip through it at times just to help myself. Other things, you just have to be very flexible. You can't be rigid. We're in the day and age where things change with so much fluidity that we have to be open to exploring new ideas. I always tell people, if you have an idea, as long as it doesn't bring harm to kids or embarrassment to the building, bring it to me. Let's bake that idea. Let's make it work. And then let's try it with a small group. Because what I find is if you try and go whole building with an idea and it blows up in your face, it kind of leaves a sour taste in people's mouth. Try it with a small group. And if it doesn't work out, cool. Let's bring in maybe a different person who might have a perspective to help build this up a little bit more.
You are an expert of piloting programs with small groups, especially with scheduling. You believe that kids need to have a schedule that's appropriate. And you've talked about something that people rarely mention, which is how the school calendar is built on the agrarian concept, right? So talk about your concept of shifting or shaping the schedule for kids for maximum impact.
So when you look at a high school setting, we're trying to prepare our kids for what the real world looks like. And going back to what you said, and it's really interesting that you look that far back into my history, I do believe that we continue to use this model where we're trying to get people ready for factory life. So what I did with my team at Milford High School at the time was we build a schedule. I believe that the pushback is for younger students who aren't ready to handle that type of time frame and that lack of ability to retain and think through information past multiple days. Now, at the high school level, it's completely different. We're preparing our kids in 4 short years, potentially, to be going to college. That ultimate goal of building a schedule is not built in isolation. We bring ideas to the table, and it was brought to the entire building to make decisions on what's the best path for our kids. So it evolved from year 2, 3, and 4. And then I know that it's still evolving after my time, which is amazing because, again, you always have to figure out the pressure points that work for your kids, for your teachers.
This platform is based on real conversations and authentic leadership journeys, right? In your authentic leadership journey, you're going to have some bumps and bruises. You're going to have some things that you should not say, some things that you should say. You're going to have some times when there will need to be edits. So to everybody in the audience, if you are a leader and you're looking to be a leader, this podcast is just a small microcosm of what the leadership seat and journey is like. Again, welcome to the Legacy 7 podcast, where our interviews won't always be perfect, but our conversations will be really, really real. And we're having a real conversation with Big Ty with the tattoos. You have taken us to the kitchen, and you have a big pot of leadership soup. I hope people are grabbing their spoons and taking a seat at the table and absorbing some of the information that you're saying. Now, one thing that you addressed is the public aspect. So you're big in leadership social media.
Yep.
How does that work in your daily walk? How do you manage it? You are a semi-celebrity. How do you manage being a celebrity and being extremely interested and leading a school?
So I always come from the school of thought that if you're not telling your story, somebody else will. Now, it sometimes can be a double-edged sword, definitely, and that's okay. You have to take the good with the bad. But ultimately, I want to be the teller of my story. The reason being is I'm the best one at telling it. So I would say that I just try and share daily aspects of what's really happening from the leadership perspective. And, I love all the positivity that people put out there. I sometimes think that it's sugarcoated too much. And sometimes I try and keep it real with people. I say leadership is lonely. I say leadership is hard. There are tough days. That doesn't mean that I don't have a smile on my face, because again, I'm happy and I love what I do. And I love that I have the ability to have an impact each and every day on a young person's life. But that doesn't mean that every day is sunshine and roses. So I try and give that perspective from all angles. But I also want people to know that you just have to be smart. And that goes back to what we kind of talked about before. If you're not willing to learn and grow from situations, then you're destined to repeat said history. I try and put those things out there that A, are appropriate, B, tell a great story, but also keep you interested. And for some people, it's like, whoa, you're doing too much. For other people, it's like, I want more. So ultimately, I just want to be able to have an impact in somebody so that they go, oh, that's a good idea. Or I'd like to connect with him and be able to figure out how I can tell my own story.
I want to say something to all you leaders, if you're listening out there. Be the best one at telling your story. You are the master of what you do in leadership, but you be the best one at telling your story, because guess what? You impact people every single day. Now, you lead with love, brother. That's something that can't be taught. It cannot. Walk us through a day in your building. If I'm a young leader and I want to know how to lead with love, and I don't understand that relationships are very important in connecting and leading people, show them how that looks. When you walk in the building, how does it start?
Well, number one, I usually have my energy drink or Wawa. I love drinking my tea. But I change the location of where teachers sign in every day so they pass right by my office. So I get a chance to say hello. And my desk is always pointing this way. So I don't sit at a traditional desk. I have a desk to the side, but I sit on a cabinet and I have my rolling cart. And I just look out and say, hey, greet everybody. If people want to stop in and say hello, they can. But ultimately, I want to start the day how I think that A, they deserve, and B, how I want them to greet the kids. After that, I make my rounds. I walk the building a little bit. I go to meetings. And again, I try and just engage with people to see how they're doing that day. Other things I do that I really appreciate on Mondays, we do what's called Monday morning check-in. So I send like a few questions out to people. They're free to answer it. They don't have to if they don't want to, but it's really, are you ready for the week? Is there anything that administration can do? I'll make the rounds over and just go talk to them before the day starts so I can see what's going on, how I can support them. As the day starts, we make my rounds to see each and every breakfast line. So we have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and I just try and check in with the kids. There's adults there monitoring. I check in with them as well. I make sure just to be visible. It's so important that people see you. It's important that people have a chance to talk to you. It's important that you have a chance to talk to people. As the day progresses and we get into things, I want to make sure that I'm making rounds and checking in with people. I go to different classrooms and check in. I have my routine after I do my announcements each day. I have 2 or 3 rooms I go to and just say hello to those kids because I want to check in how they're doing. They're my special little groups to make sure that A, you're in a good mood, and B, we're ready to tackle the day. After that, I make sure to work. I've changed from a rolling desk. I now work in corners. We have what's called technology corners. So it's a booth. I sit there and I work. I want to be there so when people walk by, I get to say hello. You're always going to get a hello from me. How you doing? I'm averaging about 15,000 a day. And people laugh because I do it. I've stepped up my shoe game in recent years. So I'll do it in my Nike Dunks. I'll do it in my loafers. Like I get my steps in. But again, I want to make sure people see that I'm visible, check into the classrooms when I'm doing my rounds, saying hello, greeting people, because that's the expectation. We want the culture to reflect what's going on. If I'm not willing to say hello to people, why is the teacher going to say hello to their colleague? Or why is the kid going to say hello? I want to set the tone as I'm walking around the building. In addition, I just like to check in with my security monitors, check in how their weekends were, how their family's doing. Again, another thankless job that can be rough. So just making sure they're in a good place because they get to interact with the kids just as much as the teachers do. From there, again, there's lots of things that can happen, but from day to day, you just have to be out and about with the people. Locking yourself in an office, does it happen from time to time? Yeah, you got meetings, you got to meet with parents, you got to make calls. But the more you can be out and hear and listen to your environment helps you better understand when people bring issues or they bring positives. I think something that's so important, and I'm learning this as I go, and I'm still not the best at it. Listen for those small things of celebrations to help tell your story to your building, because it's so easy for at times to get in a rut or, oh my gosh, it's November. We haven't had a break for this long and we really need a break. Being able to find those little things. Oh, I really loved how so-and-so did this and greeted kids. It just creates that positive vibe that we need each and every day.
And on top of that, you need to listen for the small things. And I didn't make that up. That was a fact stated by our illustrious guest, Dr. Tyler Arnold. You're going to leave a legacy. It's just written, right? Your story is amazing from beginning to end. Your kid comes up to you 20 years from now, and they're not going to remember the schedule. They don't remember all that kind of stuff. They remember how you made them feel. What does that feeling feel like as a leader when one of those kids returns and they say, you made a difference. You gave me something that I've never had before in life?
That's the ultimate payoff. I think we've become a society that's so instantaneous gratification through social media, the likes and all that stuff, that we forget that the investment is the long-term goal. Somebody sees you and says, man, you changed my life, or that text message that comes out of the blue, or that email, or, that post or something like that. That's the gold that you just continue to mine for. And I think that's the thing that people have to keep in mind. That payoff at the end, that's just icing on the cake, because you see the end goal. We got to remember, we're dealing with 11, 12, 13-year-olds at the middle school level. They can't see 2 minutes in front of them. But you can pour into them to the point where, man, I remember when you gave me that high five, or taking that patience and knowing that education's the long game.
Major educator alert, like they do in hip hop. Major educator alert. Please understand that gratification in this will not come instantly, but it will be deserved. This is powerful stuff that we're hearing. I'm fascinated. That's why I got a red and black. If you don't know, red and black are his school colors, and he convinced me to wear them, so I did it. I hope I made you proud. So
You did. That's really good. You like that. I was like, I'll go with blue.
hey,
It looks good.
We have a thing on the podcast where we call the legacy round, and there's 7 questions. So, are you ready for the legacy round?
Let's do it.
All right. They're based on discipline, effort, focus, resilience, leadership, courage, and character. What role has discipline played in your success?
Oh, it's everything. I mean, when you talk about discipline, a disciplined life helps you prepare for leadership so much. And that goes back to, I mean, even as a kid, I was very disciplined. I grew up in a military family. So my dad was in the military. My grandpa, all his family were in the military. So structure was very important to them. It was important to me. So when we talk about discipline, it's, that 4 a.m. workout. It is how I start my day. It's my win for the day. And then I go on from there. And in addition, when it comes to that discipline piece and knowing the moral compass that's going to guide you. So I know who I am. I know what I stand for. And that's discipline to me.
What do people underestimate about effort?
It beats talent all the time. If you're willing to give the effort, the work, and put in the time, people can become great at so many things. And I think that that's the hard thing for especially young leaders to see is that, oh, it just looks like it comes naturally to you. No, I have to work all the time. If you ask my staff, I still suck at giving speeches in front of people. It's something that I have to work on, and I'll be the first to admit that. So this summer, I'm pouring into that so that I can be better at articulating myself.
How do you stay focused with all that going on, the discipline and the effort?
It's the little wins that help develop you for those big steps in the future.
That leads us to resilience. So you got to be resilient to make all this stuff happen. Well, how do you feel about being resilient?
I mean, we preach that to the kids. You say, oh, you got to be resilient. And they're amazing. Like just watching them through all the things that they've been through. COVID. I mean, they went from online to hybrid to back in the building. You got to do this. You got to do that. No cell phones in the building. And like, they take it like ducks to water. I think adults are the ones that struggle the most with resilience because we become set in our ways. And if you're going to be a leader, you got to throw that out the window. You have to be flexible. You have to understand that part of your job is modeling resilience to your adult staff and your kids. There's going to be things thrown your way, curveballs, and you're just going to have to be like, okay, and roll with it. And privately, it may suck and you may have to vent. That builds on your resilience. They'll give you advice to help you understand or give you perspective.
So I know you got a definition of true leadership for you. What does it look like? If you could tell young Ty what to do when he walked into the building day one as an assistant principal, what would that definition of true leadership look like?
That's funny. When I was in graduate school, I actually mapped out my entire career. So for me, it's number 1, build relationships. Number 2, be visible. Number 3, you're never bigger than the system that you're in. You're a cog that helps things go. So you got to be prepared to do your role and play your part. Bigger than the folks who serve the food, clean the restrooms, the paraprofessional. You throw your hat in the ring, you help out in any way that you can. And finally, it's all about kids because I go back to it. People trust you with their most precious commodity. You owe them your best effort every day.
And that response sounds like that people better understand that they are a servant as a leader, and they are a steward of responsibility. Leadership decisions require courage. Tell the viewers what kind of leadership decision requires courage to you.
It's always the unpopular one. Young leaders have to understand you're probably only going to have 50% of people happy with you at a time because the decision is going to impact people in some way, shape, or form. And you have to understand that. That's where the emotion comes from. So you have to make a decision. And I say this in the grand scope is you have to get all of the voices you can to make the best decision so people feel like they're heard. They have their voice in the process of what's happening, But at the end of the day, I go back to my assistant principal who told me this and reminds me all the time, your name is ultimately tied to whatever decision you make for that building. So you have to make a decision that you can stand 10 toes down on. And with that being said, it's okay to make a decision and be reflective and say, okay, we've got to shift this way. But if you make a decision, you stick with it for the time being, and then you're reflective on it in that process.
I hope y'all are standing 10 toes down. Now, at the end of this journey, because, man, again, I just feel like you have so much more impactful work to do in this. What do you want people to say about your character? Because that's important.
I go back to it, and, my dad taught me this. A man's only as good as his word. So ultimately, I want to be somebody who's known for keeping their word, loving the fact that each and every day, even when the days were hard, I did the work and I poured myself into the work. That means pouring it into people, to the place I work at, and just trying to, like I said, leave people in places better than I found them.
We're scratching the surface with some of these leadership gems. They've been dropping and dropping and dropping. With that being said, the legacy round is over. So we have to slow down and close out. But again, guys, we can definitely bring this conversation back. I have to thank our guest, Dr. Tyler Arnold, for his time. Man, I really, really, really am fascinated with your leadership, and I hope other people are as well, because I believe you are writing some new rules in the rule book for what the modern leader looks like. As we close, tell people how they can get in contact with you.
Ultimately, I think the best source of getting in contact with me is through LinkedIn. I am on there now all the time, again, trying to tell my story. On there, I've developed great connections, thus you and me now. But like I said, I've had so many people reach out through that process and just talk through things. LinkedIn's the best way to reach out to me, because I think that, again, is the piece that creates that connection that can turn into a friendship, that can turn into whatever it needs to be, a mentorship, a thought partner. So LinkedIn's going to be the best way to reach out to me. And then we can go from there. I'm happy to do Zooms and, Google Meets, whatever somebody needs. I've done it with a couple of people just to talk through ideas.
You have heard it here, not first, but you've heard it again, how to contact Dr. Tyler Arnold. Make sure you connect with him on the LinkedIn platform. And while you're doing that, make sure you go out next week and tell somebody to tune in to the Legacy 7 podcast. Until we meet again, I hope you guys enjoy your day. I hope that you keep doing the work, and we are out. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Links in the description below. Let's get it.